and welcome to the Future Print Leaders Summit. Really happy to be joined today by John Corrall, Managing Director of Industrial Inkjet. So thanks so much for joining us, John.
No problem.
I think first of all, it would be great to get an insight into you. I know you've been in the inkjet game for a while with roles at other businesses before going on to found Industrial Inkjet. So perhaps you could take us through your background and experience.
Okay. I think it's 34 years of Inkjet, which is a fairly long time. Let's see, Elmjet, Videojet, Domino, Xaar, Xenia, then this one. So quite a few inkjet companies. Normally, technical role, engineering manager, some field service, some manufacturing. And the strange thing, of course, is you think at the time, I'm an engineer, I want to do engineering, I want to be in the lab, but it's all the other stuff. It's the field support, it's the service. That's what turned out to make the difference. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now without that additional experience. So I guess that's my background.
Fantastic. And so that kind of led to the founding of your own company eventually.
So 2005, I was approached by Konica Minolta, Mr. Ono, who's the president. And he was looking for somebody to take care of Konica Minolta's inkjet business in Europe. And over a beer, he said, right, you're going to be running Europe for us. And I said, oh, I'm just forming my own company. And he said, fine, you're the distributor. And we kind of shook hands. So that's how we got started. I don't think it was ever really my choice in the matter.
Fantastic. And just to talk a bit about the business, fast forward to where we are now. What's the current focus? Which sectors are IIJ, currently committed to?
It's really new stuff. I think so we grew out of just being tech support for inkjet print heads into, first of all, supplying kits of parts to machine builders, to OEMs who wanted to create their own inkjet printer. And we started to supply kits of parts. And then about 2009, we moved into actually supplying the inkjet engine. So all of the inkjet system, but not the media transport, not the thing that's going to move the product past the inkjet heads. Mm. So that's grown and grown for us. About 70% of the business is what we call print engines, it's inkjet systems. We're still supplying kits of parts. We still do tech support for Konica Minolta OEMs. But our niche, I think, is doing something new. It's people tend to come to us when they can't find a standard machine on the market. Looked around the industry, they've got this idea and they can't find, somebody who already has a standard machine on the market to do it. So they tend to find us, they come to us, they explain the idea. Of course, sometimes they're just crazy, fair enough, but sometimes they're prescient. They actually have a really good idea. This could be something big. This could be a whole new market. So it's very much, we've sort of developed into this go-to company who will look at the idea, find a suitable ink, make print samples to demonstrate the customer it actually works. If he's happy that, we go on, we create the machine, build the machine, install it, deliver it, support it. So this is typically our role. And it's nearly always something new where the market hasn't really started yet. There's nothing really available out there.
Hmm. And that's really interesting because it's customer led. It's like you said, it's having people come to you and tell you what they need, and you kind of meet them on what they need and develop it. And I guess that kind of puts you ahead of the game a bit. How do you kind of stay competitive if more people kind of tend to move into those areas?
I think we probably don't. I mean, I think labels is a pretty good example. So a few years ago, we were selling quite a lot of label printing systems. Mm. That's not so important to us anymore. I don't say we don't. We still do sell, but as a fraction of the business, it's not that large anymore. The label market for me is fairly saturated now. There's a lot of people selling standalone presses. Our niche, if anything, is retrofit. It's taking an existing flexo press and fitting inkjet into it to turn it into a hybrid press. But I really wouldn't see us as trying to sell standalone label presses now. That market's, for me, been and gone. We've moved on. We're into other markets, other technologies now.
And that's interesting because, looking at kind of Label Expo, whichever the last one was, 2019, I went there and hybrid was a big thing. It was a big talking point. And, IIJ has had its kind of, been in the hybrid game for a long time. You were doing
2011, I think, 2011 was our first hybrid install. So yeah,
so do you kind of you get there early and you almost moving out of it onto the next thing once other people are kind of catching up, do you think?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily some big strategic decision. It's almost customer led. As soon as the market becomes quite saturated, it's all about price. It's all about delivery, and the customers dry up for us. It's new people in new markets, Decor, flexible packaging, security. They're the people who are coming. So I can't claim some fantastic strategic vision. It's just the way the business operates, really.
Fantastic. And you mentioned Decor there. That's been something that's, it seems like during the pandemic, it's definitely been, a consumer focus. People are spending more time at home. They're thinking, not keen on that shabby wallpaper, and So, what would you say in terms of inkjet and Decor trends, and in terms of your operation in that space as well?
You're absolutely right that Decor is having a fantastic time. We've got a large customer in USA. I was talking to our USA manager the other day, Graham Flatcheck, and I think he said that customer had already shipped, I think it's window blinds. They'd shipped more already this year than the whole of the previous, a typical year like 2019. That 3 or 4 times now the production rate there we're at. Decor's really interesting. I mean, it's been around a lot of years in terms of things like high pressure laminates, board printing, direct to board printing. The big thing that we're aware of at the minute is just a shortage of wood. There is a world shortage of high grade, high quality wood, oak, maple, walnut. You can't get them. There's plenty of beech. If you want beech, you can get it. So what do the big furniture manufacturers do? They either got to wrap the wood in a foil, a printed foil, or they try to print direct. Direct is far more economic. It's much cheaper. You don't get wrinkles when you go around the curves, but it's technically difficult. You're trying to move an inkjet printhead over a complex shape. But I think that's a big potential. I mean, that is beech that's been printed to, you can still see a little bit of the color, but it's been printed to look like good quality wood. Mm-hmm. So this is the kind of market that we see is likely to take off big time in Decor. The other one, my personal favorite, we've been working on this year, is wallpaper. So, digital wallpaper is definitely coming. It's already there with scanning machines, but they're too slow. Mm-hmm. Volume manufacturers are looking for 60, 70 meters per minute, linear speed, the same as their conventional presses. Now, when we can produce machines that will do that with inkjet, that are economic, that allow them to get away from the design problems with conventional press. Conventional press got a 600 millimeter repeat. So every pattern repeats 600. With inkjet, you've got none of that. You can print a mural wall. You can print, the whole room is one big picture. So the market's been crying out for this for at least 5 years. If we can crack the technology and start to supply a machine, then that's certainly going to be a very successful market for inkjet print.
Fantastic. It's amazing to think about what you can do, and people don't a lot of people don't know about it, but the possibilities are absolutely incredible in that space. So that's going to be really exciting to keep an eye on.
There's quite a queue for high-speed wallpaper printing. Our frustrations, we've been trying to crack it for a number of years. I think we're there, but I've said that before. We'll see in the next few months, I think.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure we'll be kind of keeping a keen eye on that. What about packaging? Maybe we could talk a bit about trends in the packaging space in Inkjet and what you guys are doing in packaging.
We put a lot of effort a couple of years ago into putting colour on pulp packaging. That one surprised me. It doesn't really seem to have taken off big time. So certainly a couple of years ago, there was this big, let's unpollute the oceans, let's get rid of plastic, let's go with pulp.
Yeah.
And we put a lot into it. I think we've got 1 or 2 systems installed, getting rid of the label, printing onto pulp packaging. But it feels a little bit like this market its time has not yet come. Some point soon, I think that one will take off. Flexible packaging, kind of similar. The last 3 or 4 years, a lot of the big analog press manufacturers, people making printing presses for flexible packaging, for things like food pouches, coffee pouches, drinks pouches. They've been knocking on the door. We're doing print samples. It feels like nobody quite wants to be first. They all really want to be second, not first. Very much got to be water-based. Nobody's willing to go with UV, even low migration UV. We've found an ink that seems to work really well on non-porous, flexible packaging materials, water-based ink. I think that the situation with that is somebody will start and everybody will follow. And it's soon. I think it's coming soon, but it hasn't quite happened yet. The other one in packaging for us is, maybe sounds a bit of a strange one, but really high-speed print onto drinks cartons. So things like juice or milk. High-speed production, 300 meters per minute, standard line speed. And all you're doing is putting a QR code or a barcode into a space on the actual carton. We put the first system in 2016. We've done 3 lines in China for a big producer there. What that is gambling. So you take your phone, you scan the code. Hey, you win money. You can win a prize. So it was a little bit niche, perhaps. It's marketing, promotional stuff. But you've got now in Russia, the Russian dairy project, Chestnuznak, I can't really say it. It means honesty sign. Mm. And what this is a unique ID code, a unique traceable barcode on every dairy product. So milk, butter, cheese, it's all got to have this code on. And we're only a year away from this becoming compulsory. So it's fully variable print. You collect the codes from the Russian government, the Russian state, you print them 300 meters per minute. Obviously you can't have waste codes, you can't have scrap material because somebody's paid for that code. It's a tax offense, essentially. So I think that's really quite exciting for us at the minute. And what I think we're starting to see is the customers going, well, if you can print a barcode at that speed, perhaps you could do the ingredients information or maybe some brand information. If it's a special run for Tesco's or somebody, you would put that on it rather than the standard name. So I think we're seeing some interest in color onto the same lines, onto the same products. So I think that's our main work on packaging at the moment.
And that's interesting that, the speed not being an issue, can we go for full color printing? What are your thoughts on the impact that will have on trends?
One of the points I often make to customers is Inkjet ink is expensive. It's going to cost you more than your conventional ink. So what it's for really is short run variable information. you have to do the economics. You have to look and say, right, when I'm printing my fruit juice carton conventionally, I've got so many hours of setup, so much tooling. The ink's costing next to nothing, but I've got all this waste, all this downtime. And then you compare that with Inkjet, where you pay more for the ink, but there's almost zero setup, there's almost zero waste. So it always comes down to the economics. Now, the more color you put down, the more likely it is the economics don't really favor Inkjet. Mm. If you're printing a big solid block color, well, why would you do that with Inkjet? You know, the Inkjet is going to be more economic for the variable stuff that you're changing every 10,000 or 20,000 cartons. So I don't ever say Inkjet should totally replace conventional printing. To be honest, if you're printing millions of anything the same, it's not digital. It's not Inkjet. That's the kind of thought in my head. But I think in terms of ingredients, some brand variation, partial variation on the carton, yeah, that could probably be economic done digitally.
Mm. It's about, choosing what Inkjet's really good at and, making sure that the numbers add up, really.
Yeah.
So how is IIJ, supporting and advocating for the drive towards digital in those markets in Decor and how are you committed to that?
As I say, it's pretty much everything we do. It's the whole company's set up for that. Sometimes we're still supplying heads to OEMs, and supporting them. But again, it's typically the OEM, somebody with a new idea and a new target, a new market, a new application. So really, it's whether it's just an OEM or whether we're going to supply a complete system. Most of what we do is helping a customer to create his dream, really, we create a system that matches his vision, that's going to work economically for him, that's going to, to complete this goal in his head. One interesting thing during the virus is I think there's been a lot of people sitting at home, and what they've been doing is thinking, and what they seem to have been thinking about is the future. Mm. Do they really want to go back to doing it the way they used to? Maybe now is the time to think about doing things new ways. So the rate of new inquiries in the last year has gone through the roof for us. Mm. There are so many people coming to us with new ideas, new concepts, new things to try out.
Fantastic. And just kind of staying on that, it's I think we kind of have to address the pandemic and the impact it's had. It was one of the catalysts for all the FuturePrint virtual events that we've run so far, and particularly from a leadership perspective, at the onset of the pandemic, there was a kind of lack of clear leadership and direction with the events, live events, disappearing and being postponed and cancelled. So, taking a look at your business and how you've had to kind of reevaluate over the last 12 months, particularly, from a leadership perspective, what's changed. There's been a cut down in traveling and seeing people and talking to customers face to face. How have you managed that?
I'd never believed it. I mean, I used to travel at least once a week. I was Ryanair's best customer, I think. And I've made one trip in the last year. Can't say I'm really missing it that much. I mean, I am 4-5 times a day. I'm on a conference call with customers. Mm. It used to be, 2 or 3 meetings a week, and the rest of the time was travel. So there really is something to be said for, virtual conference meetings. I suspect what will happen is when, a year from now when the virus is gone, people will expect you to come again and the travel will build up. But I can't say I'm in any great hurry myself. I think it is quite efficient working the way we're doing it. The really challenging one, the one I was surprised we've coped with, was service and installations. Mm. If you go back a year, and our service department tracked this, about 86% of service was done remotely, by video, by email, by TeamViewer, and 14% was getting on a plane. Obviously, in the last year, it's 100% remote. It's 100% by link. I would have thought it was quite impossible to, for example, install a machine remotely. How do you physically lift it in place? Well, the answer is you talk the customer into it, and then you have at least one video link running. You've got TeamViewer so you can actually see the PC, see the software, see what's happening. And you just very carefully explain to him what he needs to do. You improve the training, the preparation materials he gets beforehand. And we've done it, and we've been, with a few small number of exceptions, we've managed to install everything over the last 12 months remotely. What really, really surprised me was our insurance company. Because quite early on, there was a customer who said, well, I would do it, but if I touch this thing and break it, now whose fault is that?
Right.
So we contacted our insurance company. I think they thought about it for a bit, and they said, okay, tell us the day it starts, tell us the day it finishes, we'll cover it.
Wow.
And I was really quite impressed with that. And you go to the customer and tell him that, he goes, okay, no problem, let's have a go. So that's worked really well for us. Wow,
fantastic. And that's, going forward, has it had any impact on how you might, tinker with the way you deliver some support services, or, any?
I think we will revert back to travel carefully and, in a rational way.
Yeah.
I can't really see anybody just heading straight down to the airport the morning after. We've got used to it. It is efficient doing it this way. But a virtual install probably takes 2 to 3 times as long to direct, physically their install. So there's a balance. You've got to look at it and see whether it's worth doing or not.
And just want to, kind of staying with looking to the future, but, at more big picture, this event is really a fantastic opportunity for the community to take some insights from leaders in the industry. And I think, particularly your perspective's, unique, and what we've discussed of, customers come to you, you've got your eyes on the emerging markets, before they're, in the mainstream. If you look ahead to the next 2 years in terms of the development of Inkjet, what do you see? How do you see things playing out in terms of trends and the development of the technology?
If we look at different segments, so labels, for example, as I've said, fairly saturated. I think we're seeing some rationalization. So really interested to see Mark Andy have launched a machine with domino technology in it rather than Mark Andy technology. I think it's fairly inevitable. If you've got a lot of players in one market, you expect to see some rationalization. Flexible packaging, as I've said, is coming. Also in packaging, blister foil, they've had a great year. Obviously, virus problems, pandemic. The pharmaceutical guys are busy. They're getting something from it. Tube printing is interesting. We've been quite successful in tube printing for a number of years, just supplying the Konica Minolta heads. They're really thin and they suit printing small tubes. That seems to be fairly kind of stable business. But you can't really make one machine to print every kind of tube. The machine that prints these two things, it's 2 different machines. So the market, I think, tends to be fairly niche. Each machine builder aims at one type or a couple of types of tubes. They're unlikely to get pushed out by high volume Chinese manufacturers because everything's different. Volumes of machines are relatively small. So I think it's a fairly protected business, fairly stable business. But I don't think anybody's ever going to sell thousands of machines into that market because of the sheer variation. Decor I've talked about. Security is for us is really important. It's over half the business now. Security means things like passports, ID cards, driving licenses, government documents. And Inkjet's really good for this. Inkjet gives you, it's a constant battle between the printing company and the counterfeiter. It's a race, and you need to stay ahead of these guys. And Inkjet opens up the technology hugely for, people in this market. So this is passport. And I don't know if you can see that.
Mm.
Okay, so, fluorescent inks, adding security features. This is good. This is active. It's selling, but it's a constant push. It's constant R&D coming up with the next technique, the next thing that will protect that document from.
Because people figure out how to kind of emulate the security features. Is that the issue?
And what we're seeing is, I think, a trend that this is moving into packaging.
Mm.
And it's not so much like personalization, it's brand protection. It's proving that your expensive garment or your expensive perfume is legit. And the one that I hadn't expected at the start, but we see it now, is distribution chain verification, or it's making sure that your distributor in one country didn't break the pack up and export it across the border into an area where the prices are higher. So there's some of this putting security features on packaging products is actually to check your own distribution rather than to check against counterfeiting.
Interesting. And that's a really significant part of your business now.
Yeah, the true security in terms of government documents, tax stamps, very much part of the business. The packaging, we're just starting to see that appearing now.
Interesting. So it's a huge amount of possibility for Inkjet over the next 2 years. Lots of opportunities to get into these growing markets. So that's really, really exciting stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think just, we're nearly at the end of our allotted time, but I think just to put you on the spot a little bit, as it's, the Leaders Summit, it's as I said, a great opportunity for those of us in the industry to look at the leaders and get their insights. But from your perspective, is there anybody that has or does inspire you as a leader, or is there any particular style that you think you have that's important to leadership?
I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but Mr. Odo from Cornick and Minolta has long been a friend of ours. He helped us start the company. There was something he said to me, Jeeves, probably 13, 14 years ago. It was quite early on. And we were talking about a lead, an inquiry. Can't even remember what it was about, but it was something a little bit unusual. It might have been printed electronics. And he said, look, sometimes the job is not so much to create a new sale as to create a new market. And I try not to forget that one. That's quite important for us.
Yeah. Well, based on our discussion, it sounds like you didn't forget it, and you're really into those new markets, and really, really interesting talking to you, John, about everything that IIJ are doing and your insights into the future of the industry as well. So thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing that with us today.